Hello and welcome to LT's Garage. Today we're going to be making some Halloween trees using these 2 game cones from the toy section of Dollar Tree. It comes in a pack of 2, and you can see I've already trimmed the bottom off of one, and I'm going to trim the bottom off of this second one. You need a pretty heavy duty pair of scissors. I trim off the corners and most of the plastic. Then I will go back and kind of even everything out and make it a little bit smoother. I have just plastic flying everywhere at this point, trying to get that all evened out. So here are my 2 small cones. I actually want to make 3 trees, and just to add some variety, I grabbed this larger cone from the tool section of Dollar Tree. I thought it was really cool because it was bigger, but I had no idea how difficult it was going to be to cut. I actually have this little hacksaw from Dollar Tree, and it does cut through this, but it takes a long time and it's not super easy to control. So I don't really recommend this cone, but since I have it and I already started cutting on it, I decided to use it. So here I'm using my husband's tin snips, really sharp edges here if you decide that you are going to try this, but I know that you can get like foam cones and like paper mache cones, and they probably cost a bit more, but it might be worth it because that was a lot of work cutting that cone. So here you see some feather boas. These are in the Halloween section at Dollar Tree. They're just cute little orange boas. They have black ones as well. They have a little bit of gold sparkle in them. I'm using some E6000 glue. One thing I need to tell you about the way I craft is I get an idea or I see something and I think I want to create it, and I just start kind of working on it. I don't always do it maybe the best way, and I kind of learn as I go. As I try these things, I figure out better ways to do them. The hot glue is definitely a better way to do this. When I put the first feather boa on, I just left so many gaps, and so this second one is I'm just kind of going around and filling the gaps that I left. I think when you see how I do the tall cone here in a few minutes, I think it's a much better way. So I kind of learned a little bit from doing this one, but it still turned out pretty cute. I think it's a fun, fuzzy little tree. For my second small cone, I'm going to use this felt. I have 3 sheets of felt. I'm going to actually cut some little petals out of it. So first I cut these strips. They're about an inch, maybe an inch and an eighth wide. And then I'm going to cut these little curved triangles out of the felt. Oh, there you go. They look like vampire teeth. But they're just little petals that I'm going to be layering onto my cone. I used about 2.5 sheets of the felt for these petals. Speaking of a learning curve as I'm crafting, I probably would have made these a little bit bigger if I had known how long it would take to put these on. So I just kind of put that first row on, kind of layering the edges like I showed in the picture, and then the second row I put the points right over the seams of the first row, and I just keep going that way right up the cone. Again, this was a pretty time-intensive tree. I think it probably took longer to do this one tree than it took to do the entire rest of this project, but it's pretty dang cute once it's done. I did get to this point. Here I am taking off all the hot glue, trying to rub off the hot glue strings. I got to this point and I have this flat top, and I thought I need a little cap, a little cone top for my cone. So I cut a circle and tried a few different sizes to see what would work. I ended up with kind of a Pac-Man shape, and then glued the edges and made this little cone. Then glued the cone on the top of my tree and added some more petals. So just this last little row of petals here. And then I still had that tiny tip showing. So I thought about how I wanted my finished tree to look, and I decided to take the rest of these petals, or a few of them, and cut them into more like a leaf shape, I guess, kind of pointed at both ends like that. So I cut several of those and used those at the top of the tree. I glued them on pretty much the same way as I had glued all the other pieces on, but this time they tapered up to a point. So my tree had a point, and you can't see it because I got totally out of frame here. So sorry about that. I will show it to you again later. Now I'm going to do my large cone, and having learned from doing my feather cone, I will be using this orange and black garland and starting at the top with my hot glue, just winding around, scrunching up the garland as I go around, keeping everything close so I don't have to go back and fill up any gaps. So I just keep twisting this around. This large cone did take 2 of these 9-foot garlands from the Dollar Tree. Did I already say that? Sorry if I repeated myself, but really fun, cute, fuzzy tree this turns out to be. So again, just if you decide to do a project like this, when you're wrapping something around, I'd definitely start at the top and work your way down. The layered petals, of course, needed to start at the bottom. So here's my 3 trees. Looking at them, I have the shimmer and sparkle on those 2, and this one, the felt one, seemed kind of dull, so I'm going to add some glitter to it, some sparkle. I don't want it to be the wallflower at the party. So I'm spraying this spray adhesive on it, my crazy camera, as I take it outside. Set it on top of this soda pop bottle so I can handle it a little bit better. And then just start dousing it with some glitter. This tree's going to compete just fine with these other trees. All this sparkly glitter. So there you go. Kind of shake it around a little bit. Here are my 3 trees just sitting on a table. I decided I wanted to put them on stands. So I dug through some stuff that I've collected. This is an empty ribbon roll. I'm going to cut the top and bottom, just the sides off. I'm going to keep the tops and bottoms, but I'm trimming them down. And then I'm going to reinforce the top and bottom with some cardboard. Again, just more stuff that I have saved in my garage, just bits and pieces of this and that. So I cut these cardboard circles. I'm doing 2 of these stands for my 2 small trees, and then I'm going to use something a little different for my large tree. I'm cutting some small holes the size of my dowels that I'm going to be using for my trees. I had some dowels on hand left over from a birthday party actually several years ago. So they've just been sitting in a box, and I'm going to use them for this project now. You can get dowels at the hardware store, even craft stores I think carry them. Different sizes of dowels. There's my 2 little tubes, and I'm going to paint them orange. So I'm going to do a paint treatment here using some crackle. So there'll be some layers. So my first layer is the orange. Here's a little box that I had gotten at Dollar Tree. I'm actually using the lid to this box for a different project, but I thought this bottom part would be perfect for my large tree. This is my crackle medium. I had left my tops off thinking it'd be easier to fill those tubes, but I need to put them on so I can crackle the whole thing. So I'm going to crackle these, just paint the crackle medium right over the orange paint that's now dry. One thing about this crackle is it does take a little time to dry. I think probably 4 to 6 hours. I'll probably let it dry overnight, but once you get it on, you need to let it dry completely before you do the last part of that. So here are my dowels. I have a 22-inch long dowel for my large tree, an 18-inch long dowel, and a 14-inch long dowel. They were actually they were a couple of really long dowels, and then I used a saw and cut them down. But I just painted them simple black, and now I'm going to paint black over my crackle. So one of the things to know about crackle, if you want your cracks to be large and show up a little bit more, you want to go a little bit heavier on the paint. I'm going to paint the inside rim of that too. So I'm using a lot of paint on my brush because I want my cracks to be pretty big. If you want fine cracks, then you want to use less paint, paint a little bit thinner amount on there. But here are my crackled, couple of my crackled stands. I think they turned out great. They look very Halloween-y, if that's a word. They look like Halloween. So I got these pebbles at Dollar Tree. I was actually going to use gravel from my backyard, but I saw these and I felt them, and they had nice heft to them, and I thought, oh, these will be easy to put into my little containers that I've made here, and I don't have to wash the dirty gravel from my backyard. So I filled my little tube I filled it about 2/3 full, and now I'm adding some glue, kind of making my own concrete, I guess, with these little pebbles and glue. Just kind of shake that around and mix it up. And then I'm also going to use some hot glue so that I have some instant stability to this dowel that I'm putting in here, and kind of maneuver it around. I want to make sure it's straight up and down all the way around. And I made sure that it was all the way to the bottom. And now I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue right around where it goes into the base so that I know, so it kind of secures it. So here's that little round box. I actually did put some larger gravel pieces in the bottom, and then I put white rocks on top of it, and of course, squeezed glue all over everything the whole entire way, and made sure my dowel was nice and stable, because this is going to hold my large cone. And I want to cover up these white rocks, so I was going to use some of this moss from Dollar Tree, but I didn't like the brown, so I actually took it out and spray painted it black. Then I was worried about the white rocks showing through, so I had this bottle of paint. It actually was basically empty. It just had paint around the sides and maybe a little bit in the bottom, so I added about a teaspoon or so of water and a little bit of glue. I don't know, maybe a little bit more than a teaspoon of water, but I just added glue and water to it and shook it up really good, and pouring it over the top of my rocks here to turn them black. So I thought that was a pretty good way to use the last scraps of the glue out of my bottle. But here I'm putting my moss on top of all this. I'm going to cut off the excess. I really like the way this looks. It looks very, kind of adds to the spooky nature of it, that black scraggly moss. And now where my dowels go into the stands, remember I ran that line of hot glue, and I just kind of wanted to cover that up a little bit, so I'm tying some little ribbon bows at the base of my dowels here. My tree stands, I think those little bows add to how cute this is all going to be. So I'm just going to put a little hot glue, and those flat, those cones have that flat top to them, so they sit right, just really nicely on top of those dowels. So here's my feathers, and you're not going to be able to see the black and orange one very well because this dowel pretty much goes all the way up to my camera, as you can see here. The tippy top. So I'll set that on there and show you the finished project here in a minute. But I remembered making cones out of paper before, and so I just went on to the internet and did a search for a paper cone pattern, and there's dozens and dozens, all different shapes and sizes, and I printed this one off and cut this paper cone out of just some cardstock, and look how great this is. It's not as big as the cones that I used, but it's still a great cone. And in addition to that, at the Dollar Tree, they have these dowels. There's 10 in a package, and they would work great with this size paper cone to make some little trees. I think I will have to probably do some more, maybe for Christmas. But here's a fall one that I did. Just used some orange cardstock, made a cone, and put these leaves all over it. Very similar to the petals that I did. I got really lucky. These leaves were 99 cents, but they were half price, so I got a couple bags of them. And so just an inexpensive little tree. I did the same stand for this tree just because I had extra. I painted it brown and put some burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree around it. I had that tape to kind of hold it closed. The glue was still drying. You could see the white. But here's this cute tree. Just really fun. Another way to use this idea. Those stacking baskets in the back I'm going to use for another project here in a week or two. Here are my Halloween trees. Look how cute. That sparkly one turned out great and competes just fine with the sparkle and shine of the other two. I just think these are so adorable. They're whimsical, maybe even a little glam here for Halloween. I just think they turned out great. So I hope that maybe these spark some ideas for you. These are going to be really fun in my Halloween decor, which hopefully I can give you a tour of when I get it all done. I've been a little slow on that this year. But hey, if you push that subscribe button, you'll be one of the first to know when I do post my Halloween tour. And it helps me know that you like my videos, and I'll keep making them. Share it with someone else you think might like it, and visit me on Facebook at LT's Garage and Instagram at LTS_garage.